being recorded.
Good afternoon. My name is Franklin Johnson. I'm chair of the Clark County Commission, and I'm calling this meeting, work session, to order. Before we get started, let me just provide a few hybrid meeting reminders. Remember to keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking. For those in the room, you need to press the button on your microphone to speak and press it again when you're done speaking to mute it. The light at the bottom of the mic turns green when unmuted and red when muted. When you speak, we also request that you turn on your mic, you state your name so everyone can track who is speaking. Okay, we'd like to start. The first item on our agenda is an update on the Aging Readiness Plan approval and where we are now. So before we go any further, let me turn this over to Cass Friedland because she was in attendance at the last approval session. Cass?
Oh, thank you, Franklin. Yes, I was in attendance, a meeting that had, I think, 22 agenda items, and we were I won't say they saved the best for last, but we were the last item on there. At hour 4, the county councilors all unanimously approved our Aging Readiness Plan, expressed, I think, a great deal of excitement about the plan, and also I want to say confidence in the Commission on Aging for moving this plan forward. So congratulations, everyone.
Susan, would you like to kind of give an overview?
So I was just going to add, yes, both the Planning Commission and the County Council were very complimentary of the Commission for moving the plan forward and all of the work that was done to make that happen. And they wanted a report back, which we are planning for January, about implementation and of the plan, and they want to hear back on how implementation moves forward. I guess I was just going to also, we let them know that there's a few strategies that are already underway that you were working on, including working with the Area Agency on Aging and other partner agencies to share and distribute best practices for reaching older adults, and to educate older adults and caregivers on information and resources provided by the by ADSWA. So we are working to begin to give them that update, like I said, in January.
Just a question. On the aging plan itself, how will the county council move that along to the other cities? Will they send them a copy of it and said they endorse this, or how do they acknowledge receipt of it to the other cities? When I say the other cities besides Vancouver, is there any format or any way they're going to do that to show the endorsement of it?
So that's maybe something we can talk about. I think you had mentioned previously about sending a copy of the plan to state legislators, and we have not done that yet, but we can. And we can certainly send a copy of the plan to each of the cities. Another way that we'll move that forward, I think, is with our presentations that we do every year. And we can bring them copies of the plan when we do those presentations, which are usually, they start after the meeting with council through to the middle of the year usually. And also, you're going to hear about this in a little bit, but the annual report this year is going to be focused on the plan and information in the plan, and so I think that's another way to bring that message to the cities.
Good. Good.
I just have a quick question. Since we made presentations to the different city councils talking about the draft plan and that we were planning to have it approved, would it be appropriate to set up another series of meetings to go back and talk about the plan? Because at the time, we were thinking we would have 6 chapters, and now we just have the 5 again. Your thoughts?
So in addition to the meetings that we have with each of the city councils normally, a second meeting, I think, because at least, obviously, if you have any thoughts on this, we can change this, but the focus of each of those meetings would be to report back to them that the plan got approved and that the process for that. So I'm seeing those as being duplicative, but maybe I'm missing your point.
Okay, we can explore this a little bit later offline. I just want to thank everyone who attended these 2 sessions, everyone who wrote a letter of support. It was good work, so give yourselves a hand. Any other questions or comments about the Aging Readiness Plan? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and go to old business. We have the September 20th meeting note review. Does anyone have any comments or questions about the September meeting notes? Or any changes? Okay, seeing none, then I think we'll go ahead and plan to move to have those approved in our regular meeting. Now for the 2024 work plan updates.
That's me. This is Jenna. So since the last meeting, we sent out a draft copy of an outline of the plan for next year on emergency preparedness, and asked for, if anyone had feedback, to send it our way. I think we only saw some edits from Franklin, didn't see them from anyone else, so we're working with Franklin to incorporate his suggestions. But otherwise, our next step as staff is to start scheduling and getting ready to follow the plan. So thank you all for the review, and I think that's basically our main update, unless anyone has any other questions about the initial schedule. Things may move a little bit as we try to schedule, but otherwise, any other questions or comments on the plan for next year?
Anyone have any other questions or comments? One thing that Susan mentioned, I think, is particularly important as we think about our 2024 work plan and the work we're doing the rest of this year, is that the council is expecting feedback on our progress. So it really puts an emphasis on our need to move forward, actively engage with the different partners that are going to be responsible for either reviewing these different strategies and determining whether they are ready to implement or if they need to be combined or if for some reason they're not feasible to implement, so that we can close the loop on all of the different strategies that we have in our plan. So it's going to require a little more engagement from all of us as a commission than we have had in the past. So we might be looking at going to neighborhood associations, other venues where we can talk about this, as well as interacting with the different partners that are going to have responsibility basically to implement these plans. So our engagement activity is going to ramp up a bit. So let's be prepared for that. Thank you. Okay. Let's have a report from the Community Engagement Subcommittee. Cass?
Absolutely. The subcommittee, which is Justin, Dick, Ken, and myself, we met virtually on Monday, October 9th. The charge of our subcommittee is really twofold, that we are working with ADSWA to create a one-page informational document that could be distributed to aging community members, community residents, their families, and caregivers so that they can be connected to resources more swiftly and effectively. And we are also tasked with building a communication plan that can spread this one-pager widely within the community. So for the first part of our charge, we had learned that ADSWA had very recently brought a communication staff member on board, which is really exciting for ADSWA. They're moving forward. But because this staff member is so new, it was decided to circulate an existing one-page ADSWA document as our distribution prototype. And we say prototype because this is a way through this partnership that we're trying to figure out how to move information more widely within the community. So to address the second charge, that distribution prototype, which is and building a communication plan, we had already had a really fruitful brainstorming session in September where we had created a long list of Clark County organizations and businesses and places of residence and community sites such as places of worship and community centers. And Jenna and Susan are going to continue to refine this list, and we sincerely hope that community members will help us deliver the informational document from ADSWA to places on the list, saying hello, I'm a member of Commission on Aging, and just a little contact. We also understand that we're getting cool name tags created so that we can wear them and bring attention to our work on the Commission.
Thank you, Kaz. Any questions or comments? Okay, let's move on to new business and the 2023 annual report.
Okay, this is Jenna again. So for those of you who are new to the Commission, one of the items in your bylaws is that you provide an annual report to the County Council each year. So that takes the form of some sort of written material, as well as a joint meeting with them at the beginning of the year. So that would happen in, we're trying to schedule for January of 2024. And so the focus is on reporting what happened the prior year, and also to give them a preview of what you're working on for the coming year. So staff is starting to work on the annual report from this past year. We wanted to share what we were thinking, see if it makes sense with you before we go ahead and do the work, and then would hopefully have a draft for you to look at your next meeting. So we are thinking this annual report should primarily focus on the Aging Readiness Plan getting updated and adopted this year as the big accomplishment for the year, plus also outline other accomplishments of the Commission this year, but really highlight that was a big deal. And we'd also are thinking we'd like to make the report very short so that people actually read it. So it's, it's something we hand out to city councilors, to the county council, we can distribute it other places, but I mean, we're talking maybe a couple pages, maybe a trifold. We want to try to get it really succinct, make sure it's clear, who the Commission on Aging is and key accomplishments for the year, and really hone in on some of those strategies that are either identified as upcoming priorities or ones that progress was made on during the year. So that's our general thought, but we wanted to see what you all think, if that sounds good, if there's any other requests of things you want to make sure we include in this document that we'll produce.
Who exactly is it being presented to?
Yeah, good question. So I guess there's a few audiences. One is it's documentation of what you did. So it's creating a record. So that's one thing that it's doing. But it's a public record, yes. But it also gives a snapshot in time, in 2023, this is what the Commission on Aging, key things they did. So it's documenting that. But I think the county council and city councils are one of your audiences, so the decision makers, local decision makers. But it's also something we typically will share with members of the public if we talk to a neighborhood association. So we can use it as appropriate and, you know, to other people to say, hey, here's who the commission is and here's what they've been up to, essentially.
Any other questions or comments?
This is Ken Lund. Brief is good. Love your idea.
Any thoughts about this or format?
Let me just ask, Jenna, is there any other commission, whether it's planning commission, done similar type things? Have we learned from what they've done? Reports that they've done, plans that they've done?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
Several commissions have some sort of annual something, like whether, I'm not sure, a report, presentation, like most commissions have a report back in some form to the county council. Susan and I might need to dig for some examples. As far as I know, the Commission on Aging's annual report usually looks way better and is distributed way more than most other commissions. But I feel like I need to do some research to be able to maybe, but we can totally do that and look at some of the other commissions. But again, my recollection and the feedback I've heard is that most people are very impressed with the Commission on Aging's annual reports, usually, because they are, I think, a little bit more just public facing. You know, a lot of people do it because they have to, but it doesn't go much further than that. Whereas I think we've made an effort to distribute it, you know, we'll print 100 copies and make sure we get rid of them all, and that they get shared, things like that. So, but we can make sure what I'm recalling is fairly accurate.
I just want to be mindful of the impacts on the staff schedule, so keep the time you commit to researching this. Anyone else? Okay, let's go ahead and go to reports and communication. There is upcoming presentations and subcommittee meetings.
Yes. Oh, sorry. That's me. So we just wanted to let you know we are going to give a report to 2 neighborhood associations at the beginning of November regarding, it's a shortened version of the Aging Readiness Plan adoption presentation that we gave to council, but we shortened it up quite a bit and just went over the goals instead of every strategy and gave some examples of the strategies. And they both invited us to do that, and so we're going to give those updates on November 8th and November 9th. And then the Community Engagement Subcommittee meeting is scheduled for November 13th at 10 a.m.
Any questions or comments?
Dick Claremont. And what neighborhood associations are you going to?
We are going to the Airport Green Neighborhood Association on November 8th and the Arnada Neighborhood Association on November 9th.
Oh, okay, thank you.
This is Jenna. I would just add, so we were in contact during the Aging Readiness Plan update with all the county and city neighborhood associations, but feel free to mention it. If you are involved in any way with a neighborhood association, you're welcome to mention that the commission can give a presentation to them. So feel free to continue to spread the word. These 2 just happened to reach out to us after we offered.
Jenna, there is a neighborhood association alliance that the city has where all the neighborhoods come together, and I think it's on a monthly basis. Is there an opportunity to get in front of that particular group?
So we gave one update to NAC, which is the group I think you're referencing. And we could reach out to them and ask them if they are interested in another presentation. But we did give them one update already.
It'd be good to make sure that the organization gets the word out to the neighborhood association so that they realize that, hey, this is pretty significant. We need to be at that meeting. Okay?
Dick Claremont here. A similar structure exists for the county as well. Oversight committee and individual neighborhood associations.
Right, there's one for the county, and then there's also a group for the city of Vancouver as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Would it be at all helpful or permissible for any of the commission members to attend those with you?
I think it's fine. I think Susan and I felt like this was more of a staff presentation, like, because it's on the document itself, but we're happy to have commission members join us and either share in the presentation or just help answer questions, or, yes, we're happy to make that arrangement. We're basically doing the consultant Rose, you know, we're picking up where she left off and doing the type of presentation she was giving.
Is Rose going to be involved in any of these, or?
No, we are done with our work with Dudek, so, yeah, so we'll carry it forward. And yes, much more general audience oriented and shorter.
Okay, thank you.
And just another, and I don't want to belabel what we're doing here, but at the same time, it's a lot of work that went into this, and I'd like to see it get out. You know, there's other organizations like the school districts, ESD 112, for example, the education, Clark College, WSU, getting them involved, and, you know, Clark College has staff meetings there, and it's an opportunity to get in front of that staff, and I mean, after all, many of them are following the age of seniors, so it'd be important. But the school districts would be good. ESD could arrange that, because ESD periodically brings all those superintendents together for meetings. I think they still do that. But again, it's another way to outreach organizations that we haven't gone to before, because, you know, this is a significant strategic plan. It talks about our seniors in our future, and they deal with it. So, but I'll just throw that out, and it's maybe something we can explore.
Thank you, Larry. Would you be willing to help kind of lay out a list of, you know, organizations, because you have a lot of experience in, you know, public government.
And I'll get with Jana.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I have a question. Well, in general, in regards to the association meetings, these have happened before. This has been something that's been ongoing.
So I guess I would answer that when community planning has a project of any sort, whether it involves the Commission on Aging or not, we frequently will go to the neighborhood associations and give presentations. And so we've done occasional presentations to neighborhood associations that ask about Commission on Aging work.
So is that where the Airport Green and the Arnado ones, they actually specifically asked?
That's correct.
Because we've got all kinds of associations out there, right, throughout. I'm just thinking out loud, but it seems like what Larry just mentioned, that there's, you know, larger groups where they all meet together, or is there an opportunity for a larger forum to where you could kill a lot of more birds with one stone, as opposed to trying to go individually to each one? And really, it just seems logical to me. That's all.
Or even maybe have a canned presentation that could be distributed or available on the website.
So we have the canned presentation. It's ready for those November meetings. That was somewhat the purpose of the NAC presentation, to try to give as much information to that site group as much as we could. And we did, at key points during the Aging Readiness Plan project, send emails to all of the city and all of the county neighborhood associations, and these are the ones that got back to us. And so, you know, if all of a sudden we had 10 requests, I might be more concerned about it. When we sent out the last piece of information, you know, these are the only 2 that responded, but, so, I don't know.
Yeah,
You don't see this as a staff ad?
Not yet.
I just think if we're looking for high impact, and we're looking to actually, you know, make wheels turn, then why would we maybe consider, maybe that's not for right now, but the future, to try to generate I mean, we have access to a larger presentation room, a gym, a school gym, I mean, so whatever. I'm just thinking of something like that where we could look at and really promote it and put it out to where we want all the, you know, really engage the associations from all the communities and put it on their plate to feel responsible, to show up and to take this seriously. If that's what we're trying to do, is create awareness and create action ultimately. In order to do such, I think there's somewhat of a, you know, if you had them all in the same room and you're pushing it, maybe they'd start to compete with each other, or really like try to be the front runner in who implemented the best or whatever, you know.
So I think one way we might do that is with implementation. I mean, they're somewhat interested that we passed a plan. I think they're going to be a lot more interested in the implementation work that we do, and when we're asking them to get involved, especially, there are a handful of strategies that speak specifically to neighborhood associations in the emergency preparedness chapter. And so I think focusing when we have an action for them to make might get them a little bit more excited and interested in it, as opposed to, you know, just the plan being passed. I mean, they're interested, but maybe not specifically interested. But once we get to implementation, I think we are going to be asking them to be more involved.
Any other comments or questions? I know that I'm familiar with the City of Vancouver, and they've got a couple of outlets where you can reach a large number of associations. I know there's an office of neighborhood associations, so it might be worth coordinating with them to try and put together some kind of event where neighborhood representatives could come together and kind of minimize the impact of us doing, you know, a presentation to every single potentially neighborhood association. The other thing I was going to ask is, would it make sense to maybe develop a series of news articles to talk about the plan approval, and maybe begin to highlight some of the information in each of the chapters, maybe have a series of articles, each one focused on one of the chapters of the plan. And if that's a viable idea, I'd be willing to, you know, work on that.
We can certainly, you know, talk about that and ideas for what we might include. And get back to you on that, yeah.
Okay. I made that suggestion not as a indication to put more work on your plate, but to look at if that's a viable idea, then, you know, I'd be willing to work on some drafts that submit to you to review for publication. So
I think that's a great idea, Franklin, because ultimately, if you want these people to take the information and actually try to implement some of it, you know, if we give them the fire hose presentation, it's going to go in one ear out the other, right? And we also know from the perspective of like marketing or getting people to have awareness, you know, sending one thing out to them is low. You know, you're not going to get the same generation as if you broke that up into 12 different ones, you know, and let them eat it one bite at a time. One bite at a time. That's how you know. Yeah, there you go.
I'd be happy to work on that with you, Franklin. if you want some support.
Okay, thank you. If there's any other volunteers, don't hesitate to be shy about. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Okay, let's move on to liaison reports. Let's start with you, Justin.
Well, my report there hasn't been an ADSWA meeting until before the next one. They didn't have one today. So I have nothing to report in regards to that. However, I'll use that time slot real quick just to tell you guys a couple things that have happened recently. The other day, I got a call randomly from somebody that had water damage to their house. I went to look at it, and the lady that owned the home, I got to talking with her a little bit, and she is one of the managers at a local place called Centerwell. It's a care facility. Well, actually, they're managed care, so they do. She manages OTs, nurses, nurse practitioners, all kinds of people that go out to people's homes and provide care into the community. Home health care agency, there you go. And I was listening to her. She's very passionate about, her frustrations and things like that, what she wants to do, and she's really trying to make things better. I asked her, I said, are you familiar with ADSWA? And she was like, it didn't ring a bell with her. Like, that's interesting, just to have someone who's trying to be that engaged and working her focus, trying to manage her people and what they're doing in their level, but not having any bigger picture awareness of all the other, considering that there's so many other people out there also working towards similar goals. I just thought that was interesting. That confirms that we have lots of work to do to connect people.
May I make a comment on that before you move on?
Sure.
So, this
Ken?
is Ken. Yeah,
Oh.
Ken Lund. And Centerwell sounds like a nice little community-based organization. It's not. It's owned by Humana, I believe, and it was owned by Kindred, which both are national companies in the delivery of home care services. But going to your point, the fact that we've got the Area Agency on Aging with this enormous budget and a couple of the largest national players don't know that they exist in the market, there's a place for us in that.
Very good point. Just the other thing I was going to share was that, and this is just kind of off the cuff, but my client I've mentioned to you guys before, I've talked to, he's a friend of mine now. He's 94 years old this year, well, next month, and I was talking with him the other day, and I was telling him that about the men's shed. I'd found all that out, and Larry had mentioned that it was a good resource. I was telling him, yeah, that's what it is. He said to me, well, I don't necessarily want to go to a place with a bunch of other old people sitting around talking about World War I stories, because that's boring. I want to talk about current stuff. Okay, so 94 years old, and that's his mind. He's sharp for 94. Has lots of stories about lots of things. He's well-traveled, and, but just, that's it. And I've heard that before from other seniors saying that's why they go to these events or whatever, and they end up not having fun because it makes them feel old. So, anyway, that's all I got.
Thank you, Justin. That's kind of an enlightening feedback. It makes me think of one other comment I wanted to make earlier about the neighborhood associations. My experience, at least in my particular neighborhood association, is that you get the biggest turnout when there's a problem. When people are upset about something or they want something fixed, then they come to the meetings. Otherwise, if everything's going well, the participation and engagement is not as high. So that's something to keep in mind as we're making these neighborhood presentations.
Or if there's food.
Pardon me?
Or if there's food.
Oh, yeah. We even went around there's a lot of businesses in the boundaries of our neighborhood association in Bennington. And so we would go to the different stores and beg for stuff. We had printers that we would advertise in the newsletter. We're going to raffle off a printer, or we're going to, whatever product they were willing to give. So whatever inducements we could come up with, that seemed to work. And also holding them on the weekends rather than during the week. As we moved around, we found out that we got much better attendance on the weekends. And, families have kids that they're dealing with during the week and stuff like that. So having a midweek evening meeting didn't always get the best participation. So giveaways and other inducements and moving it to the weekend seemed to be a big plus. Thank you for that. Do we have any other liaison reports? Ken?
We ran out of time last month, but the ADRN meeting that I attended last month was basically 3 presentations, and I'll pass the notes on to Susan and Jenna. But the one that I wanted to report on is there's actually a program in North County where they're taking, when there's an event that fire typically responds to, if they make an assessment that it could use a social worker, that they're actually deploying a social worker to it. And not only is it having great results in terms of interventions, pre-suicide, those types of things, but it's also releasing the paramedics and the fire department significantly earlier, which allows them to go on to the next thing. So it's not only successful from an outcome basis, but it's an enormous benefit to those departments. It's very limited geographically, but that might be a group that would be interesting to have as a fireside chat in terms of an available resource that's growing in the community in the future.
Okay, thank you. Let's put a pin in that and explore that further. Okay. Any other comments or questions on that? Okay. Being none, then I'd like to take this time to introduce a distinguished guest. We have the Community Planning Staff Director, Oliver Ojeko, and I hope I didn't butcher that. Would you like to make a...
For inviting me to come and meet with you. First of all, let me thank you all for the update to the Aging Readiness Plan that you all advocated for, and the council provided funding for it, and it was updated successfully. I want to also thank my staff for the work that they did, and all of you, both individually and collectively. That was a very good process, and it worked out very well. So let me start there. That's the good news. What you may call, okay, why are you here? Because I usually allow my staff just work with not only this Commission on Aging, but the same with the Historical Preservation Commission, the Planning Commission, the School Advisory Board, and all the commissions we work with. I let staff do work with them. I don't usually intervene, but I'm coming to you to let you know that we do have a staffing capacity issue because of the work we are doing relating to the growth management planning update. It's not unique to Clark County. All the other cities are going through the same effort to update the growth plan. That plan is due on or before June 30th, 2025. And I am really, really pleading with you to understand where I'm coming from. Because of that staff capacity issues, Jenna, who is assisting and working with Susan now, is also a project manager on the climate bill. Some of you may have heard about the climate bill that the legislature passed. it requires Clark County and majority of the cities here in Clark County to have a chapter on climate change, and also another sub-element called the resilience sub-element. So Jenna is leading that effort. So you will going to be seeing less of Jenna. But I will assure you that I have another staff who is going to be assisting Susan. She's not new. She have worked in community development and then in parks, I would say public works, and now I'm back to community planning. So Amy Wooten will be joining you while Jenna focuses on the climate change bill. I don't come to you often to make this type of request, so I'm really asking you to understand while I'm here, and also to make sure that the assistance you're getting from my shop will still be there. It's just a matter of having Jenna focus on that climate bill. It's going to be very, very extensive, both in public participation. We are working with all the 7 cities in Clark County as we write that new chapter. It's just brand new. And, you know, Jenna is currently working on bringing some consultant on board to help us with that work effort. I really want her to focus on that. I can also tell you that there are so many folks in the community who are clamoring, this should have been done yesterday. So I'm listening to that. I'm also listening to our council. I'm listening to our city partners. So this is why I come to you to make the request. It's not reducing the support that you're getting. It's just making sure that that continues, but a different phase. So that's my ask.
Point of clarification. I appreciate your humility, and it was a very straightforward presentation. But my question is, this is really informational as opposed to a request. Is that correct or incorrect?
It's both informational and also as a request. Yes, because I didn't want Jenna or Susan to be the one making the request or providing you that information. That's why I wanted to come in person to do so. But more importantly, to just thank the group for the update to the Aging Readiness Plan. I was very pleased with the outcome of that process. I really want to thank the entire commission for your effort and supporting staff and being there to testify. You know, now I know that you're getting into the implementation of that work, which we are here to support you. That's informational and also a request. Yes.
So if I can get some clarity, this is a permanent change. This is not a temporary. In other words, we say goodbye and she's not coming back.
I wouldn't say that, because things can change, you know?
We're just looking to make Jenna uncomfortable. Just so you know.
Pretty much. She's squirming around in her seat there.
Yes. You know, I'm only focusing on the climate change. She's also our lead on Shoreline. She's also our lead on the school advisory committee. Even though they don't meet as regularly as you do, she's the staff to the school advisory committee with all the 9 superintendents we have here in Clark County. So I don't want her to be burned out. Let me just be clear. I don't want her to be burned out. And this climate bill is one that is going to be very challenging. I know the city of Vancouver have their own climate action plan, but they have not escaped what the legislature asked that be done. So this for Clark County is the first step for us to get into the climate bill. And because of that, I want her to focus on that. But like I said, Amy Wooten is very good and will pick up where Jenna and Susan are. It's not going to be a learning curve for Amy. So, and she's already working closely with Susan on the housing bill that we're also working on. So, a lot on our plate. You know, as soon as answering your question, as soon as the growth plan is completed, you know what happens next. We go into our appeal, and sometimes it takes us a year or 2 or 7 years to come into compliance. So I'm not advocating that we take us 7 years, but every time we do the plan, so you know very well that we get appeal. And but if things change, we are successful, and Jenna wants to make changes and say, I want to come back to the Commission on Aging, I will make staff changes. But I'm also approaching retirement, so somebody else may make that decision.
Aren't we all?
Yes, yes.
I just wanted to say thank you for the update, but also in my time on the commission, we've gone through COVID, and we had to meet virtually for, I think, over a year. And we couldn't have done that without Jenna and Susan's help. So I just want to say thank you for the staff support. They've been invaluable, and we couldn't have gotten nearly, maybe even a fraction of the work done without their support. But I also noticed how big the smile is behind the mask. So I don't know if coming back is something you're really looking forward to. But I just want to say thank you for all the expertise, the care, and shepherding. I know it's been like herding cats, but we appreciate everything that you've done, and we're going to be missing you. So thank you for that. Let's give you a hand. Also, I just wanted to ask, given these impacts, is there anything that any of us on the commission can do to, we've tried to be very sensitive about not asking for things that would create more impacts on them. But I'm sure we have, even though we've tried to be conscious of that. So I just want to put an open invitation as you think about it, is that if there's anything that any of us can do, and I'm saying that particularly for myself because I feel a responsibility to try and make sure we do our utmost effort in terms of communicating as well as implementing the strategy in the plan. So as you think about it, please don't hesitate to get back to me or through staff or whatever to say if there's something we can do differently or, to help with that. Please let us know.
I will certainly do that. I think Larry Smith knew very well. I was involved in the development of the first Aging Readiness Plan and worked with the group that put that together. We had, if you recall, we had Colette Anderson, we had Jackie, we have others. Changes have occurred. We still stayed with, staffing the commission. I can tell you, and it's a confession, there is no budget that the council provides to me to staff this commission. It was just a commitment that I felt is necessary for me to continue to support the commission. You can't create a commission and not support them. I know that the council is very supportive of the commission, but it falls on me and in my department to continue to see you be very successful. I take your requests, and I will make every effort through my staff to continue to work diligently with you to continue implementation of the plan. That I will assure you. And even when I talk about retirement, I will make sure that whoever will take my position, this is part of the legacy that they will carry on as well.
We appreciate your comments. It's a little unnerving for you to talk about retirement because, so I hope you won't do that for at least another couple of years till my term ends. But
thank you very much. My staff is saying the same thing, but one has to retire when you can really afford to do so. That's all we talked about this afternoon, and Susan was there. We had my old colleague that retired. They just showed up from time to time for us to have coffee, lunch, and talk about issues, work, retirement.
You do realize you continue to use that word, retirement.
Yes. One will have to retire one day if you can afford to do that. Yes. So thank you very much. That's why I wanted to show up and have a conversation with you. But again, most importantly, I really want to thank the Commission on the successful update to the Aging Readiness Plan. It's well received and well talked about, so I would like to see you continuing to implement that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. Please don't take this as a threat, but once you retire, then we're going to nominate you to be on the commission.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions while Oliver's here? Well, again, I just want to say thank you for your support. Thank you for the staff you have provided and for the direction for the commission. One of the things that I've really become impressed about since I've been in Vancouver is the opportunity for citizens to participate and be engaged in the business of government. And so I appreciate the fact that you care enough about the commission to make sure it's staffed and supported, because we've been blessed to have some exceptional people on the commission, but again, we couldn't do it without the support that you provided, so thank you for that.
Thank you, greatly appreciate it, and continue to do the work. This is what I call volunteering work, and Larry Smith knows me. Volunteering is not easy, so thank you all for the work you do. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah.
One last request. You have to come back and see us before you actually walk out the door. So.
Remember what I said. The plan is not
Okay, are there any other communications or comments for the order?
We wanted to let you know that we received one public comment this month. It was an email from an interested citizen that mentioned that they would like to see the ability to audit classes at WSU and Clark College, that in the past various educational institutions have provided that ability for free, and they think that that would be a good alternative for older adults to be able to audit classes for free.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on that?
I think that continuing education is really important. I myself have been involved when I worked in college of having intergenerational classes, and the college students would not miss a single class when they were, gathering together with elders, and it was amazing. So to see something like this happen, and I know that our new commission member, Ellen, works at, higher ed, so it'd be really interesting to maybe explore that a bit.
Any other comments?
I have one other thing that I wanted to mention. So as you noticed, we're in a different room today. And the county council has moved their council time sessions to be at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. And today they went until after 2:30, which begins to affect our ability to set up and get the room set up like we normally do. So we have discussed, because of this conflict that is likely to continue to come up every single meeting time, that we would begin holding meetings regularly in this room. If you have concerns about that, we'd like to hear about them. But probably the alternative would be to move your meeting time, because they've made this decision and that's going to be their council time session. And so, unless you have some other idea that we haven't thought of, those are the two alternatives that we've been discussing.
So would you be talking about moving it to later in the day or possibly on a different day?
Probably a different day. But, this room, CVTV is able to tape the meetings. It just happens to be a little bit smaller. We don't really see that as a real negative. It does actually help, as Oliver mentioned, just to, be honest, we don't have a budget, and we do pay every single time to have that room set up in the configuration that it's set up in. We pay facilities for that time, and so, this room is set up in this configuration every time, and so it does make setup a little bit easier. So we would, that's our recommendation, that we would just begin meeting in this room. But if you have significant concerns, we can talk about other options.
If we were to stay in this room, which in my mind, it's a room, my only question is, we've started to have public show up, and in this case, it's a little awkward. If somebody could think about the configuration of the room a little bit, have it maybe an open seat where everybody's facing the potential audience, that would be terrific, at least as a consideration.
So we did think about that a little bit, because yes, this has all come about kind of quickly. We were planning to meet in the other room today and had to change at the last minute. So staff has normally sat at the table with commission members during the work session so we can give you updates on different items. But then we switched seats for the meetings, and we're planning to do that, and we're going to sit in the back for the meeting, and we would have Christina Marnaris sit here for the meeting, and we would have this set up for public comment so they can speak to you.
I'd like to bring up one more thing. When we have our Silver Citizen Award, we have a lot of people show up for that one. I don't think this room could accommodate that.
We did talk about that just a little bit. We decided to get through today and then focus on November next. We agree with you, and so we talked about that just a little bit, and maybe we could do the November meeting without tables to have more seats. We're not sure exactly how we might make that setup work, but yeah, we're going to keep thinking about that. So if you have any thoughts, please let us know.
Well, you know, for me, it's all about cost and the time and so forth. I don't have any problem. I've been in small rooms, big rooms, little rooms, you know, it's whatever you make of. This seems to work pretty fine. It's convenient, it's on the 6th floor, and I liked it personally. I mean, it's me personally, I like the time, so forth. But it all goes back to staff, setup, dollars and cents, and the time it goes to do that. I think whatever is a cheaper way to go, it works for me.
One other thing I wanted to bring up, we don't always know what the impacts are, okay? So it's just like I had no idea until just now that there's extra cost in using that room. So when things like that are occurring, please let us know so that we can make decisions based on all the information, you know? Because we're not trying to burn money or your time or anything like that. So let us know about the impacts because we appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I just have one question, and let me ask you, Dick, have you, how has this room been as far as, you know, your audio issues and things like that? Has this worked so far?
It is not much different than the other room, and I'm still getting a double broadcast, if you will. And it seems about the same for me.
Okay, well, keep us posted on that. We want to try and get your audio to where it's comfortable for you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, seeing none, is there anything else before we adjourn the meeting? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Unmute and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.